I don't really know where to start, but we'll start at the beginning. First and foremost, I think it's always important that we check in. So how are you? How are you doing today?
Yeah, it's been, whoa. I probably haven't had someone ask me that in a little bit, but it's been a bit of a struggle. I'm dealing with quite a, few things, mainly just from footy side and, just trying to find myself again post-injury. And but family's doing really well. That brings a smile to my face. Tama's doing really well in his job. The girls are loving school. Rugby, netball on Saturdays, training through the week. Definitely grateful to live the dream, but it does come with, the other side to a little bit of struggles trying to, just overcome personal battles. So, yeah.
Everyone is going through a struggle, right? And people just don't see it. What is it that you're going through?
Yeah, I guess I've probably been lucky in my career where I've always felt like I belonged. I added value to the team. I knew my place. I knew who I was. And I guess, getting ruled out of Tokyo last year, a few weeks before the actual tournament, I kind of put all my energy and focus onto trying to just to get better and try and make the team again. And I honestly thought that was going to be the hardest part of the battle. But since coming back, it's kind of brought a whole new challenge, and that's just finding my place and where I belong. And I had the first conversation in my career where I got told, you're not going on this tour. We haven't selected you. So, I guess that brings a lot of self-doubt, and you kind of can fall into those dark places of, I've just done all this hard work. I finally can play again, and now I'm being told that I'm not ready for this tournament. And it's been a bit some dark places, but that's kind of what I'm struggling with at the moment. Even to this day, I spend a lot of the time at the Com Games on the sideline. It's quite unfamiliar to me, but just trying to find the best out of those hard circumstances for me is kind of what's getting me through. Yeah.
We'll come back into this and talk about it a little bit deeper. But first, can we go back into your backstory, getting to know Niall Williams more? Because I knew you before, you were on the Seven scene. I remember people talking about you on the touch field, you were this legendary figure. You obviously played for New Zealand, captain New Zealand. What was your childhood like? What was your background, sport? When did you find your love for all of this stuff?
Yeah, I guess I was born into it. I absolutely loved my childhood. We grew up in Mount Albert, and, my brothers both played league. So my dad actually played league and for City Newton, and that's how we met my mum, because her two brothers, Billy and Stephen, were playing for City Newton, and her dad too. And they were at the City Newton club rooms, and my mum actually was on a stool, and she went to pick it up and move back, but my dad was standing behind her, and she put the stool onto his foot, and so he turned around and was like, and she turned around, and that's kind of how they met. So if you want to talk about sports, my mum and dad kind of met through sports, so it only seems right that our family's kind of growing up all around it and breathed and excelled in it. But for myself, just growing up with a twin sister too, so I always had a mate to pass the ball around. We kind of started off in athletics at Roscoe South. We just followed what our brothers did pretty much. My dad was their league coach, so Saturdays kind of looked like my mum taking us to the courts, and then afterwards we would drive over to Maris Rugby League club rooms and just spend the whole rest of the day, some of the night time, early hours, just chilling down at the park watching our brothers play. So it was in our blood. I probably didn't ever think I would play contact sport. I played netball first, and I actually really loved netball. And one of my best mates, Grace, we went to school together. And so when I just on the dawn of intermediate, my parents actually, that's when they split. And so my mum moved to Avondale, my dad stayed in Mount Albert, and that's kind of how we grew up in Mount Albert. But then I went to Avondale Intermediate and Avondale College. But my best mate and also my sister obviously was there, and we all played netball together. And yeah, I actually really, really loved netball, and I thought I was going to be a Silver Fern. My favourite player was Temu Clark, so because I played centre as well. And yeah, just really sporty. But I also kind of fell into touch rugby because Pete Waldus, legend of touch, saw me playing one time and he asked me to come play for his club. So yeah, it just grew from there. I realised that my passion for touch kind of outgrew my passion for netball, and I felt like I was kind of good at it. And I guess with Pete putting me in a mixed team, I actually really loved the challenge of playing against boys. Probably growing up playing against my brothers the whole time. So yeah, that kind of carried on. And then I started making teams. So I made Auckland Open Mixed, and I played that for a few years, like when I was 15, 16, 17. Got picked up at 16 to play for the Open Women's, the Touch Blacks. And yeah, went on that path. Got to go to a couple of World Cups with the Touch Black Women's and captained them at 2 of them. Oh, so I went to 3, so I captained them at 2. Yeah, and then even in my Youth World Cup too, we won a gold against Australia, which was cool. And yeah, so 10 years later, had been kind of with that Touch Blacks team, captaining, helping coach, bring through the next generation. And then obviously that's when it was Pete who said, you know, Sevens is going to be at the Olympics, and I think you can have a good crack at it. So yeah.
Your face lights up when you talk about sport.
Yeah.
Like people talk about their first love. Your first love wasn't a boy, was it? No. It wasn't Tama.
No, it was definitely sport. It's just, it does. I think because like I have lots of cool memories that are from sports, and like even friends now. Like I said, my best friend Grace. I've got like, yeah, just lots of long lifetime friends that I've made from sports. And it's like my mum said, you know, for her, she was always like, I got my kids into sports so they weren't just hanging around doing bad stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, even today I understand probably how much sport has done for me mentally too. It's like probably the best form of medicine I've ever had in my life. Coming back from kids, you know, there's just what you get from training, you feel good about yourself, and yeah, you've accomplished something. The whole process of being in a team, being uncomfortable, then being comfortable, making friends. So yeah.
Like you thrive in this environment. And hearing like the list of achievements is unbelievable before you became this amazing 7-star. Do you remember, like, what are the happy times around sport? You know how you say like it's given you so much, it makes you so happy talking about it. What are the memories that stand out? And it may not be for you in the professional side, it also may be, but what are those times? When were you happiest?
I remember being at school, and the first year I trialled for our topside netball team, and Grace made it, but I didn't. But because we were both only 3rd form, and then the next year I trialled again, and I made it at 4th form, and we went to nationals. And I remember our centre at the time, Luvu, she was our captain, and just before in the semi-final, she did her knee, her ACL, and I was like the centre on the bench, you know, but I was stoked as to be there. And so our coach at the time, Tania Karuria, was like, oh no, you're in. And I was like, oh my God, like it's the final, you know, New Zealand secondary schools, and I'm 4th form. And so I got to play centre, and I get on the court and we're playing Hillcrest High, and I look across and they're like, oh yeah, so your opposing centre's Laura Langman.
Did you own it?
Oh, I don't know if I owned it, but I chased her with all my heart and soul, like around the whole court, because she was so fit and fast. But I remember, and we ended up coming out with the win.
Wow.
And that was like such a cool, special moment for me, because I remember not making it in 3rd form and then thinking, oh, I'm never going to make it. And then all of a sudden, I make it the next year, and now I'm playing in a final, and I'm up against the future Silver Fern captain, who's obviously the legend of Silver Ferns now. So, like, that moment sticks in my head and makes me happy, because it's like I never gave up. I tried again, and then you just never know the opportunities that can come from a small moment. And then yeah, like I have lots of cool memories. Heading over to Kawana, you know, for a youth World Cup and just being with my mates, and we all were like, far out, like we get to fly to Australia, hang out. It was my first experience of like an overseas tournament, you know, hanging out with each other. It just, everything seems so flash. You're in a hotel and there's a pool and you get food made for you, and even though you've paid to go over there, and then, you know, to top it off, we won as well. But yeah, I still have friends from then that are my friends today. So yeah, I have heaps of cool memories.
This is why you appreciate, you know, everything that you've had while you've been in that Sevens environment, because you went through it as a touch player when you get no money, when you have to do the fundraising to go over and share beds and all of that. Things that make you happy, sport. We've talked about your brothers and sisters, your mum and dad, but I know something else that always lights you up as well. That's Tama. What has he done for you?
Yeah, I guess he's all right. Yeah.
You never want to give him the upper hand, eh?
Nah, never. That guy's my rock, man. Yeah. We've been through some ups and downs. I think it's 15 years this year we've been together. And we've probably been through everything you can think of in a relationship. But he's never once talked down to me. He's never once judged me. He's put me in my place a few times, which was needed. But like on the whole, yeah, I can't be more grateful for a human being. His actual true love in a human flesh form. And I think what makes it even more special is the father he is to our kids. No matter what we were going through, he was always there for the girls. He's always has been. And I think it's like a credit to the way he was raised too. His parents have done an amazing job with him, and he has amazing values, you know, that he sticks by. And he doesn't really say much. If you know Tama, he's quite quiet until you get to know him. But I don't know, maybe, you know, everyone says that the loud always ends up with the quiet one, like, so we're probably a perfect match. So I think we balance each other out. He brings a lot of calmness to my life and a lot of reality, and but he's also, when I need it, he shows me empathy, and yeah, he's pretty amazing.
You made me laugh when you talked about how your mum and dad met. And I'll never get sick of hearing the story about how you two met and then when it actually kicked off.
The Postley story? Oh my gosh, yeah. It's quite funny because obviously he played touch as well. He's got a touch background, and he's the man in his own right in the touch circles. And but I always played opens, like I said. I always played in the opens because Pete took me there, and he played kind of under 21, so I always thought he was younger than me. And then, yeah, that one day I was working for New Zealand Post, and our boss said, you got to train this new dude. He said he knows you. His name's Tom Guthrie. And I was like, oh, yeah, I remember him from touch. He's like the young dude. And, yeah, I always remember the day he came in on the Monday, and he walked through, and he'd gotten a little taller, a little broader. He had like a nice beard, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. I think I might need an extra couple of weeks training this guy, see how he goes. But yeah, and it just sparked off from then. Yeah.
15 years later, still together, as you say, you two have been through a lot together. Both helped each other immensely, I'm sure. And now you have two beautiful daughters. You write their initials on your wrist every time you go out and play, and the world sees that. We all see that. How much love do you have for your children, for your little girls?
Yeah, I probably can't even put it into words. I guess my whole purpose in life changed once I first had Tatum Lee. I didn't realise how and it's not a bad thing, but how self-absorbed I was. Like, I just kind of thought, what can this world do for me? And then once I had my kids, it was like, what can I do to make their life better? How can I act? What values, how can I teach them and support them to make them be the best people that they can be, and, you know, and live great lives. And so, yeah, for me, my love for them is endless, and everything I do is for them. Yeah. I
guess the hard balance with that is you're a mother, but you're also a full-time... Yeah, take your time. You're a full-time professional athlete, and you work so hard, you know, and you don't work regular hours because you're always on to try and be the best athlete and best person you can be, and also with your job comes the travel and being away. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's tough, and I've missed a few probably moments in the girl's life that I wish I was there for, but I think the toughest part is trying to not feel that guilt that comes with it, and probably even more so lately. When I used to go away, obviously pre-injury, I'd play big minutes. The win was irrelevant, but I used to feel like I had succeeded and I'd fulfilled my role and my time away was well spent. And then more recently, sometimes I've probably found myself lately sitting, in the stands watching the girls play while being on tour and wondering, man, am I being a good mum? Is it worth it to, spend 3-4 weeks away from my kids when I'm not actually playing? And it's just the honest truth. Like, I go through those moments and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I could be at home with my kids, going to watch them play rugby on Saturdays, netball. I'm taking them to their trainings, hearing about their school day, all that type of stuff. But I'm here and I'm not actually playing sometimes, and it's real tough, and it's tough to understand and to navigate through that time. But I did say, I called my girls, and I remember saying after our jersey presentation in Com Games, and they said to me, "Oh, Mum, we set the time up. We can't wait for you to play. We're going to watch you play the first game." And I had to say to them, "Oh, I'm not actually playing the first one. I'm 13th man." And I felt like I'd let them down. And then they turned around and they said, "Oh, it's all right, we'll just watch the second game." And I was like, oh, that's why I love them so much, because it was like a little bit of perspective, like, okay, yeah, no, they're still happy that I'm away playing, and regardless of the amount of time I get, they'll still always be proud of me. And then you kind of reflect and you go, oh, maybe it's actually my own standards that I struggle with, and what I base my value on. So, yeah.
When you have those thoughts, do you share them with anyone? Is there anyone that helps you get through that?
Yeah, probably Tama. I actually probably need to pay him overtime for the father, husband / counsellor that role he's been playing the last, 10 years. Yeah. So he has lots of it, and like I said, he puts on different hats at the time that's needed to help me get through those moments, and yeah, he's massive in those moments to help me see different perspectives, or to give me a bit of a it's all good. Like, you just got to focus on when you do play, make the most out of that time. And then obviously my twin sister, so yeah, she's another one who's been there for me obviously since day one, and I think the thing I love about her the most is she always talks about how proud she is to be able to call, myself her twin sister, but she's like, the best part I love about you is the mum you are to my nieces, and then also the auntie you are to her kids, and just makes me feel like happy and like my heart's full. Yeah.
You talk about the sacrifices that you've had to make, missing rugby on the weekends and the netball games and school assemblies and all that sorts of thing. What makes the sacrifices worth it for you?
Probably achieving things that I never thought I would ever achieve when I was younger. When I get messages from random people in my inbox saying, you don't know me, but your journey has helped me to get through my own journey. I've been injured, and the resilience you've shown has actually helped me to push through. When you're walking on the side of the field and a little kid knows your name and they want a photo with you and they say, I played rugby because of you and you're my favourite player. Just the impact, I think, on other people's lives and in a positive way. I love that the struggles I go through, and when I push through and come out the other side, that it actually can help other people. And I never, when I do stuff, it's not all, I don't do it to try be like, look at me and this is what you can do. But the fact that people do watch me and I have a platform that's just come from being, I guess, a part of this amazing team as well. You know, I'm real grateful and that I am impacting people in a positive way. Yeah.
Are you proud of yourself? Is Niall proud of herself?
Yeah, I'm proud of myself. I don't even know why I say I just, probably just your human nature. You don't want to be too, like, think you're the man or anything, but yeah, I am proud of myself, but man, sometimes, I can be mean and think like you haven't reached a standard, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, you could be better here, and sometimes I just need to be like when I talk to you and you say, oh, all the things you've accomplished, sometimes I never actually think about that. I'm always trying to think about the next thing, like, why can't I get more minutes here, or why can't I do this, or maybe I should do that, like, instead of kind of acknowledging what I have done. I'm my biggest, person who critiques myself, and I put my standards always probably out of reach sometimes, and so, but I, deep down inside me, I'm like, I can reach that, I can get better, I can do that, I can go for another year, you know, and then, I think to a point sometimes it can be bad for myself too, because if I don't reach that, then you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
You feel like you didn't reach that, or even now when people talk about the Tokyo, because I worked, 5-6 years to get there, and then I didn't get there, I'm like, well, what am I then in this sevens team? Like, who am I sometimes? And because that was the ultimate goal and I didn't reach it. And so sometimes I see that as a failure. When it was something that was outside of my circumstances, I have to keep reminding myself that. Yeah. But as an athlete, you always want to, that's the pinnacle, I fell short. I didn't, from an athlete point of view, I didn't reach that pinnacle that I was going for. And I was so close. But as a human being, I understand that it was outside of my, control. It's just the way it was, it happened and it rolled out, but yeah.
And you're a human being. That's the thing, On the Tokyo Olympics, it's probably really hard and probably, I can only imagine, but still very raw for you to talk about it all. But the injury itself, first doing the injury and then what the prognosis was from the doctor. Can you take us back through that? Is it in your memory or is it something that you park?
Yeah, I guess lately I've kind of parked that whole part of my career because now I'm back into athlete mode and I'm trying to, be the best I can be now since I'm back playing. But at that moment, in that point in time, it was so crazy and surreal. I don't think I was ready to hear what the surgeon had to say, and because surgeons are so black and white, how they see things. So when I went in to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to have surgery and I'm going to miss the Olympics, but then get told, oh, actually, if this one doesn't, because I had 2 discs, bulging discs, if one doesn't go down, you're actually not going to be able to play again. And I was just like, so I guess I have almost not blanked it out, but acknowledged it, gone through the process to get over it, and then I got back into rugby, so I almost kind of have to park it to the side, and then now the new challenge is obviously being getting back to where I was playing, and so it is kind of like, there's only a thin line between it, and little things can take you right back to that moment, real quick. And it's simple things sometimes we do a full kit Friday, and everyone was like, oh, here, just wear this one. Everyone wear the mint one, but the mint kit is what they got at Tokyo, and you're like, oh, I don't have that one. And they're like, oh, sorry, and you're like, no, it's all good, but it takes you right back to that moment. I didn't go to Tokyo. Oh my gosh, I nearly wasn't able to play again. Yeah, so you kind of cross between the two moments in life.
I remember watching some videos that you posted on social media that were super raw. They were very real and genuine. And I think you were in the car and you were crying. Do you remember what it was about? Do you remember the videos?
Yeah, so when I first injured my neck at training, because it was real low key, like you wouldn't have, it wasn't like a big moment where everyone was like, oh my God, are you all right? Like, I remember waking up the next day and I was like, oh, my neck's still quite sore. So I don't know, like I had this gut feeling. It was more than something I could just shake off. So I messaged Doc, and then that's when, because it was so close to Tokyo, I thought, oh, we need to get you kind of into, get a scan straight away. And yeah, I remember being like, getting told, obviously the news. I was actually sitting in the car waiting to get a run of fitness for my car, and Doc had rung me, but I just finished getting the scan. And usually, you get told the next day, but she like rang me. I had only, was 10 minutes down the road, and I just pulled in to get my WAF, and I kind of knew, like, you don't get rung straight away. With good news, usually it's, so the fact that she was ringing me, I my heart, like it sunk. And then, so she told me on the phone, like, sorry, Noel, like, the way the scan's looking, I can probably 90% tell you that you will not be on that plane to Tokyo. It's quite bad and serious. And then the cool thing with Doc was she said, I'm going to come over tonight and actually show you it and explain it to you with Tama there too, so he understands. But at that point in time, I made a decision to stay away from the team, to not tell them, because I wanted them to still prepare well, and not because we're like sisters, legit. If one, because we all know how hard everyone's worked to get to that spot. So if one's missing out, like, you feel that, and I didn't want them to be worrying about me when they're trying to prepare for something we've been preparing for 5 years, and we're in the final home stretch. So I just said, I'm just going to stay away from the team, and if anyone asks, just say I'm just, my neck's sore, but I'm all good. So that was kind of established through the coaches, and that's what happened. And we were trying to leave it to the last moment as well, like with that, 5% of hope that you always carry. But that day in the car was the day, so it had been a couple of weeks since I was injured, and they were leaving the next day. And I said I'd come in the morning, and we had a team meeting, obviously. And I just wanted to tell them from myself that I wasn't going to be travelling with them. So I think it was that moment driving in that I knew, like, I was like, I'm really not going. And I think, just my emotions got the better of me driving in. Yeah.
Is that when it became real? Or was it when they were over there and you had to watch your team play and see someone else wear your jersey, the jersey that you've worn?
Yeah, that was probably the next moment that kind of made it really real. Like so whenever anyone's injured or we leave a team member behind, we always perform the haka to them. So we've had moments where girls have obviously had to travel back home mid-tournament, and we farewell them with our haka. And it was the first time I've ever stood on the other side and had it done to me. And so that was a kind of a moment too, where I was like, oh, yeah, this is real. And then, that second moment was kind of the athlete in me when they were playing at Oceania pre-Tokyo. I was like, oh no, it might still come right, 1% hope. And then, it was, we actually got video called in on the jersey presentation that they got for Tokyo. And that was a tough time. Obviously when number 4 got called out, and I had in my mind kind of replayed that, like pictured that moment in my head, like getting presented my Tokyo 2020 jersey number 4, and obviously got read out, and it was someone else's name. I remember I had to turn off my camera. Like I was stoked but for whoever received it, but I remember I felt really, that was that moment. And then obviously watching them run out for the first game, and then I actually did a bit of TV coverage for the final, and I remember they got a penalty and Kelly tapped it and kicked it out, and they had won the gold medal. And I just bawled my eyes out. I was so happy that we finally achieved the goal we had set out, post Rio. But I was also gutted because I wasn't there to be a part of it.
Like, that's such a big contrast, right? Like the ultimate highs of what you feel when you have reached your ultimate goal, Olympic champions, and you've felt highs before because you have had success. You've been a world champion in multiple sports, But what's the darkest? What's the darkest place you've ever been? What's the lowest you've ever felt? And what was it from?
This it sounds weird, but probably more recently, just post-injury. I think because I worked so hard to get back into contention or just to play again, and I felt that big high of like success, like, oh my gosh, I came back from, what was supposed to be a career-ending injury, and then recently just find myself not getting picked, and obviously there's a whole lot of factors that go into selection, and our team's amazing, and it's always a fight to get a jersey, but lucky enough, still grateful to go on the tours. It's just I think it's just my standards that I don't want to go to a tournament to sit in the stands and watch. I want to be playing. I want to be in those big moments. So it's tough, and you find yourself in your room wondering, am I actually good enough to be here anymore, or should I be here? Should I just pack it all up and call it a day? Lots of thoughts go through your mind. What are people going to think of me? I got so many, you get messages like, oh, are you injured because you're not playing? And trying to explain like, oh, I just didn't get selected. But trying to not put on a front, but almost like, no, I'm all good. But deep down inside, you're hurting, and sometimes you think it's unfair because you think you're good enough to be in it. And sometimes you just got to understand that the plan and the players, they're actually better than you at the moment, and they've got the spot, and you've got to deal with it. But I think that's the hardest reality of sports is people don't see all that stuff behind. They just see you in a Commonwealth Games and they say to you, oh, congrats on your bronze medal from Commonwealth Games, but deep down inside, I don't feel like I actually earned it because I didn't do much. But don't be silly, and it kind of goes back to Tokyo. Everyone's like, that medal's just as much yours as others, but as a human being, I know I put in effort in those 5 years, and I definitely played a part to help the team get there. But as an athlete, I just can't accept that, that medal's mine because I didn't play those minutes.
That's the competitor in you. It's just so competitive. We talk about this, the injuries, the missing out, the not being selected, but this is reality. Athletes go through this all the time. It's just that, like you said, we see success, but we never see the journey and the struggles and what has led you to that success or what happens after that success, So for other athletes that may be sitting there and going through what you've gone through in your mind, what you've, been through in the last few years, what would you sit back and say to them? For the ones that are second-guessing themselves, for the ones that have, these questions going on?
It's tough because I'm still trying to figure some of that out myself too. But one thing I will say is if it still makes you smile, if you still want to get up in the morning, if you still want to put yourself through that grind, the hard work, the sacrifices, then it's still worth it. I think that's what's still pushing me is when I see my teammates in the morning, when we train, when I come off the field after our trainings, or, you're mucking around in the gym and you're having a bit of banter with your mates, and it puts a smile on your face and your heart still feels full, then it's still worth it, still push for it. And then the other thing I would say is talk to someone. Whether it's your partner, your mum, your dad, whoever you can find a safe space with, talk to them. Let your emotions out, and sometimes you say to someone, oh, I just need to talk, but I don't need any answers, and just have someone who can just sit there. Or sometimes, this is what I'm going through, what do you think? And if you can get people who have got a good head on their shoulders, sometimes you see things that you never saw before because you're only looking through this tunnel of an elite athlete. And they sometimes can guide you and show you through their eyes, like, you're actually doing all this and this is amazing, and it's probably not as worse as you think it is. That's probably my two main things. Yeah.
They're really important as well, really important. Who is Niall Williams behind that black jersey with the silver fern on it?
Just a mum, who struggles like every other human being, who's still trying to find who she is, where she belongs, but also knows who she is and where she belongs. Just takes sometimes a bit of perspective, a bit of love from others to help me to see it, yeah.
What makes you most proud? What are you most proud of?
My 2 little girls.
Yeah.
When people come up to me and say, oh, they were a pleasure to watch, or they've got such good manners, or they helped another student do this, the people they are, there's no medal, no nothing that ever sports could give me that feeling I get from being proud of what my girls do and say and act. Like, to me, that's the ultimate high, because I know that's myself and Tama and our families, our village that's helped raise them. That's them, like, in a human form, little human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of them is definitely you, isn't she?
The cheeky one, eh?
We see it every day. Little Niall. Just one final thing from me. You mentioned the fact that, like, you couldn't have even dreamed of doing everything that you've achieved. And I know that it's hard for you to accept all the things you have achieved, but we see it. The world literally sees what you have done, and it's remarkable. Like, I don't mean to make you emotional, but, like, you would genuinely go down as one of our greatest female athletes of all time, you know? Like, you are that level. And I hope that one day that you look back and you see that of yourself. But what did, like, 5-year-old Niall, what did 10-year-old Niall think that she was going to do with her life?
I thought I was going to be a lawyer because you get told they make lots of money, they're powerful. But what I've realised is that in similar form, though, that you can be very powerful, a powerful woman in society without money, without, you know, being the richest or the most famous, but with just what your actions and your words, you know, doing something you love, having an impact on people's lives. I think 5-year-old Niall would be proud.